Welcome to Spot Podcast, the voice of scientists, where groundbreaking research meets your ears. We bring you the world's top-cited research articles in an engaging podcast format, making cutting-edge science accessible anytime, anywhere. Stay informed, stay inspired. This is the Spot Podcast, the voice of scientists.
Welcome back, everybody. You know I love a good challenge, and you guys have sent me a great one this time.
Yeah.
This article from Nature, Rebuilding Marine Life.
Oh, yeah.
It's
ambitious.
It's ambitious.
Yeah.
It's hopeful, and it really makes you think, like, can we really restore the oceans,
Yeah.
to what they once were by 2050?
Yeah, it's really interesting that this isn't, just some pie-in-the-sky idea.
Right.
This is a data-driven article published back in April 2020.
Okay.
And it presents a scientifically backed plan. And, it's not just from anybody. It's from a whole group of really leading scientists.
Yeah.
And they're led by Carlos M. Duarte.
Oh, wow.
From the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology.
Okay, yeah. The author list is very impressive.
It is.
Like, they're from all over the world.
Yeah.
They're representing some of the, top institutions of marine science.
Definitely.
But before we get too deep into the science,
Yeah.
let's take a step back for a sec.
Okay.
The article reminds us right away how important the ocean is
Yeah.
to the planet and to us.
Yeah, it's easy to take the ocean for granted,
Right.
But it really is the lifeblood of the planet. I mean,
Yeah.
It provides us with food, oxygen, it regulates our climate,
Yeah.
and it even contributes like 2.5% of the global GDP.
Wow.
That's a lot of economic activity
Yeah.
that's dependent on a healthy ocean.
That's a really good point. And it really underscores how, our lives are intertwined with the ocean, even if we don't live near the coast.
Absolutely.
But here's the problem. And the article doesn't try to hide this.
Right.
We've been putting a lot of pressure
Yeah.
on these really vital ocean systems.
Yeah.
And it paints a pretty stark picture of the damage we've caused.
It does. It really does. You can think of it like the ocean's kind of like a shared resource, like a
Right.
giant community garden.
Okay.
Everybody benefits from it.
Uh-huh.
But if people start acting in their own self-interest without thinking about, the good of everybody,
Right.
the garden's going to suffer.
Right. The classic tragedy of the commons.
Exactly.
I remember learning about that
Yeah.
back in school. But, it's one thing to learn about it in theory and another to see it play out
Yeah.
in real life
Yeah.
with something as big as the ocean.
For sure. And the consequences are real,
Yeah.
Overfishing, pollution, habitat destruction, all of that is taking its toll on marine life.
Yeah.
And then you've got climate change on top of that,
Right.
adding another layer of stress.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about. But what's amazing is that even with all those challenges,
Yeah.
the ocean can bounce back.
It can.
Really. I mean, we hear so much doom and gloom about, the state of the ocean.
Right.
Are you saying there's hope?
There is. There really is.
Okay.
And what's really cool is that this article doesn't just talk about the problems.
Okay.
It really
Right.
highlights the ocean's ability to, recover and to heal itself if it's given the chance.
Okay.
And they have some really compelling evidence to back that up.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Give me some examples. Convince me there's some optimism to be had here.
All right. So think about World War I and World War II.
Okay.
When fishing was like way down because of the conflict,
Right.
fish populations saw a huge rebound.
Oh, wow.
It was like an accidental experiment.
Yeah.
But it shows just how fast the ocean can recover when there's less pressure.
So even war can have a silver lining, huh?
Yeah, that's a weird way to look at it.
Yeah.
But there are other examples that aren't, tied to conflict.
Okay.
Think about the Marshall Islands.
Okay.
After they had all those nuclear tests there,
Yeah.
you'd expect just, total devastation.
Right.
But the coral reefs there, they actually recovered.
Seriously, coral reefs can come back from that.
They can.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. And there's more. The Black Sea, which was super polluted during the Soviet era,
Mm-hmm.
it got a lot better, in terms of water quality and just overall health
Okay.
after the Soviet Union collapsed. And that was mainly because there was less fertilizer runoff from agriculture.
So these were all kind of accidental successes, not planned conservation efforts.
Right. And that's what's so powerful about it. It shows that the ocean has this inherent ability to heal
Right.
if we just reduce the pressure we're putting on it.
Yeah.
And these accidental successes, they actually paved the way for more intentional, targeted conservation efforts.
Oh, so it's like those accidental recoveries
Yeah.
made people realize, hey, maybe we can actually help the ocean recover.
Exactly. The article highlights several specific interventions
Okay.
that have been successful in restoring marine life,
Uh-huh.
and they categorize them in a way that's easy to understand.
Okay, I love a good framework, so lay it on me.
All right, so first you have regulating hunting.
Okay.
Think about CITES,
Hmm.
the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species.
Okay.
What it does is regulate trade of, endangered plants and animals.
Right.
And that ensures their survival. And then you have the Global Moratorium on Commercial Whaling,
Right.
which has helped several whale species recover
Yeah.
from near extinction.
It's amazing to think that something like, regulating trade
Yeah.
can have such a big impact
It is
on the
just-
survival of species.
It shows you the power of global cooperation.
Right.
When countries get together to protect a shared resource, we can do amazing things.
Yeah.
And remember those humpback whales?
Yeah.
Thanks in part to CITES and the whaling ban?
Uh-huh.
Their numbers have rebounded from just a few hundred back in the 1960s
Wow.
to over 40,000 today.
That is a comeback story.
It is. And it's a reminder that even when things seem really bad, there's always hope.
I like that. And
Yeah.
those successes have fueled even more efforts.
Absolutely.
Like, what about managing fisheries?
Yeah, so things like catch limits,
Yeah.
closing some areas to fishing,
Mhm.
and co-management strategies where fishers and scientists work together
Yeah.
have all been shown to rebuild fish populations.
It makes sense that, involving the people who rely on fishing
Yeah,
would be key to making those strategies work.
for sure.
But let's face it, there are always going to be challenges, right?
Right, yeah, of course.
I mean, it's a global industry with a lot of moving parts.
The article acknowledges that things like illegal fishing
Right.
and harmful subsidies that encourage overfishing,
Yeah.
those are still major challenges.
Okay, so it's not a quick fix,
No,
but it sounds like we're at least moving in the right direction.
we are.
What about water quality?
Right.
That seems like a whole other problem.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to clean up something as big as the ocean?
Well, there's been some progress in that area, too.
Right.
The article talks about how successful policies have been
Uh-huh.
that aim to reduce nutrient pollution and hazardous substances
Okay.
that are going into the ocean.
Right.
Those pollutants often come from agricultural runoff, industrial discharge,
Right.
even everyday household products.
So it's about tackling the problem at the source, rather than trying to clean up the mess once it's in the ocean.
Right.
Makes sense, but what does that actually look like?
Well, they talk specifically about the positive impact these policies have had on seagrass meadows.
Okay, yeah, I was curious about those.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So these underwater meadows are like the lungs of the ocean.
Okay.
They provide oxygen,
Okay.
filter out pollutants,
Mhm.
and they serve as nurseries for a ton of marine species.
Wow.
But they're super sensitive to pollution,
Okay.
especially excess nutrients from fertilizers.
Uh-huh.
So by reducing the amount of those pollutants,
Right.
you're creating a healthier environment for the seagrass to thrive.
Got it.
And a healthier seagrass ecosystem benefits the whole ocean.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the final intervention they highlight,
Okay.
which is probably the one that most people think of first:
Okay.
habitat protection and restoration.
Right. This is where those marine protected areas come in. Those underwater national parks we always hear about.
Yeah, the MPAs,
Mm-hmm.
they're designated areas of the ocean
Right.
where human activities are restricted or totally banned, and that lets the marine life recover and thrive.
Yeah.
Back in 2000, less than 1% of the ocean was protected.
Wow.
But now we're up to over 7%.
Okay.
And it's still growing.
That's a huge change.
It is a huge shift. And it's not just about setting aside areas
Right.
and hoping for the best.
Right.
There's also been this big increase in active habitat restoration projects.
Oh, yeah, like restoring mangrove forests,
Exactly.
oyster reefs,
Rainforest.
kelp forests. I remember reading about this massive mangrove restoration project
Yeah.
in the Mekong Delta.
Uh-huh.
They restored like over 1,500 square kilometers.
That's massive.
Yeah, it's hard to even wrap your head around a restoration effort on that scale.
It is really impressive. And it shows that we're not just talking about small, feel-good projects.
Right.
We're starting to think big when it comes to restoring the ocean.
Yeah, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the problems the ocean faces,
Yeah.
but also its amazing ability to recover.
Mm-hmm.
We've explored these specific interventions that have worked,
Yeah.
But we've also touched on the challenges.
Right.
They're still out there.
Yeah,
It's a lot to take in.
it is.
But I have to ask, can these interventions,
Yeah.
even if they're successful on their own,
Uh-huh.
really add up to this goal of rebuilding marine life by 2050?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's one that the authors try to answer in the next part of the article.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
I'm dying to know if they think we can actually pull this off.
I am too. So can we actually achieve this substantial recovery of marine life by 2050?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Well, the authors of this Nature article, led by Carlos M. Duarte,
Right.
they say yes.
Okay, but there's a...
Bottom yacht.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the catch?
They acknowledge that we can't just, turn back time
Right,
and go back to this pristine, untouched ocean.
right. We've changed things too much for that.
Yeah, we've altered the planet too much, so
Yeah.
that's just not realistic.
Okay, that makes sense, but what can we do then?
Their idea of substantial recovery is really about restoring the ecological functions and services of the ocean to a point where they can support a growing population.
Okay, so it's not about erasing, human impact.
Right.
It's about finding a way to coexist.
Exactly.
Okay, I like
It's about finding a balance.
But is 2050 a realistic timeline?
Right. It seems like tomorrow.
Yeah.
It does, but the authors looked into the research,
Okay.
and what they found is that lots of species and habitats
Yeah.
can actually bounce back
Uh,
within 1 to 3 decades,
wow.
once the pressures are gone.
That's pretty fast.
It's remarkable how fast nature can heal.
That is encouraging.
Yeah.
So are there any habitats that are already showing signs of recovery? Like, what can we expect to see, in our lifetime?
So the article goes into this, and
Okay.
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Salt marshes and mangroves, for example,
Okay.
they have a really good chance of substantial to even complete recovery by 2050.
That's great news, especially when you think about their role in protecting coastlines
Exactly.
from storms and rising sea levels.
Right. It's a win-win
Yeah.
for the environment and for coastal communities.
But are there any downsides or trade-offs to consider?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's important to look at the whole picture.
Right.
Restoring these habitats takes careful planning and management.
Yeah.
So, for example, restoring a salt marsh
Uh-huh.
might involve redirecting water flow or
Yeah.
even removing invasive species,
Right.
which could impact other species
Yeah.
or human activities in the area.
So it's about finding that balance
Right.
and understanding the impacts
Exactly.
and making smart decisions.
Absolutely. What about those seagrass meadows we were talking about?
Oh, yeah. Any good news on that front?
There is seagrass meadows are also likely to recover substantially,
Okay.
and many are expected to rebound in the next few decades.
Wow.
The key, like we said before, is reducing those nutrient inputs
Right.
from things like agricultural runoff and wastewater treatment plants.
Okay.
The article points to several cases
Yeah.
where improving water quality led to amazing seagrass recovery.
It's amazing how resilient these ecosystems can be even after all that degradation.
It is, but what about coral reefs?
Yeah, they seem to be struggling these days.
They are.
Is there any hope for them?
Coral reefs are definitely facing a tough challenge.
Yeah.
And the authors recognize that
Mhm.
their recovery is more complicated.
Right.
It depends on addressing local pressures like overfishing and pollution,
Uh-huh.
but also climate change.
Right. That's the big one.
Yeah, even with ambitious climate action,
Mm-hmm.
they say we're probably looking at partial to substantial recovery by 2050.
Okay.
And that's if we're lucky.
So it's a longer game for coral reefs.
No.
It is. But even partial recovery is a win, right?
Absolutely.
Considering how important they are for biodiversity
Yeah.
and for all the people who depend on them.
Every bit of progress matters.
I like that. So what about kelp forests?
Kelp forests are looking pretty good.
Okay.
They're fast-growing and
Uh-huh.
adaptable.
Okay.
And the authors think we could see substantial to complete recovery by 2050.
Wow. So what makes their recovery so promising?
Well, their fast growth definitely helps,
Okay.
but sustainable management is crucial too.
Okay.
They talk about managing fishing practices,
No.
especially those targeting species that rely on kelp forests.
Okay. So it's about protecting the whole ecosystem.
Right, it's all connected.
Yeah. It's all about those connections.
Exactly. And speaking of connections, let's not forget about those oyster reefs,
Oh, yeah. Oysters.
those little ecosystem engineers.
Yeah. They create habitats for other species.
Mm.
They filter the water,
They protect coastlines from erosion.
and they're delicious.
They are.
Maybe that's not the most scientific perspective, but
No, but it's true.
I love a good oyster roast.
And it brings up a good point.
Yeah.
Restoring ecosystems isn't just about these abstract environmental goals.
Right.
It's about making a world where people and nature can both thrive.
I like that. So speaking of delicious and sustainable seafood,
Right.
what about fish populations themselves?
Yeah.
Can we expect to see, those depleted fish stocks make comeback by 2050?
The authors think that many fish stocks, especially those that are well managed, could recover enough to support sustainable fishing within the next few decades.
Wow.
But it's going to take a multi-pronged approach.
I imagine this is where those recovery wedges come in.
Yeah.
It's not just about fishing less.
Right.
It's about addressing the bigger picture.
Exactly. We need to tackle bycatch, which is the accidental catch of non-target species.
Yeah.
Habitat destruction, and those harmful subsidies that encourage overfishing.
It's a complex problem.
It is.
But the payoff could be huge.
It could be both for the environment and for the people who depend on fishing.
So it sounds like there's a lot to be hopeful about in those shallower, more familiar parts of the ocean.
Yeah.
But what about the deep sea?
Right.
It's so vast and mysterious.
It is.
And it seems so far removed from our lives.
Yeah.
What are the chances of rebuilding those ecosystems?
That's where the timeline gets a bit longer.
Okay.
The deep sea is home to some creatures that grow super slow and are very vulnerable. And we're just starting to understand the impacts of human activities down there.
Like what kind of activities are we talking about?
Things like pollution, climate change, and even deep sea mining.
Deep sea mining, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does, but it's a real concern.
Wow.
Companies are looking to the deep sea for valuable minerals.
Okay.
But we don't really know what the environmental impacts will be.
That's scary.
It is. The authors of this article actually call for a moratorium on deep sea mining until we know more about the consequences.
That makes sense.
They think that even with strong protections, we're probably only looking at partial to substantial recovery of those deep sea ecosystems by 2050.
And that's if we act now.
Yeah, and that's a best case scenario.
It's a good reminder that even the most remote parts of the ocean aren't safe from human impact.
Right.
This whole conversation has been eye-opening.
It has.
It's amazing how interconnected everything is in the ocean.
It is.
And how our actions, whether we live near the coast or not, have these ripple effects.
They do.
But what does all this mean for our listener?
Right.
For someone who cares about the ocean, but might feel overwhelmed by how big these challenges are.
That's a great question, and one we should definitely explore further.
Yeah.
Because this information is most valuable when we know how to use it.
So we've talked about how important the ocean is, all the threats it faces, and this amazing ability to bounce back, and even this ambitious idea of substantial recovery by 2050.
Yeah.
But our listeners are probably thinking, okay, what can I do about all of this?
Right. It's easy to feel like what we do as individuals doesn't really matter when you're facing these huge global challenges like this.
Right.
But the truth is, those individual actions, when you multiply them by millions, they can create a big wave of change.
Okay.
Remember this article, Rebuilding Marine Life? It emphasizes that restoring the ocean is what they call a grand challenge for humanity.
I love that framing a grand challenge.
Yeah.
It makes it sound like an epic adventure.
It is kind of.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
But where do we even begin?
Right.
What are some things our listener can do?
Okay, well, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
You, the listener, have already taken that step by, reading this article with us.
Right.
Now it's about sharing what you've learned.
Right.
Talking to your friends, your family, your community.
Right.
The more people who understand how important the ocean is and how it can recover, the more momentum we'll have for change.
Sharing is caring.
Exactly.
But it's not just about talking the talk.
Right. No, you got to walk the walk, too.
So what are some things people can do in their everyday lives?
Okay, so one of the easiest and most impactful things is reducing your use of single-use plastics.
Right.
Think about all of those plastic bottles, bags, straws, all that packaging that ends up in the ocean. It harms marine life, pollutes ecosystems.
I know I'm guilty of using more plastic than I should.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. But bringing reusable bags to the store.
Yeah.
Carrying a refillable water bottle.
Right.
Saying no to plastic straws. Those little changes add up, right?
They really do. And it's not just about reducing your own plastic use. It's also about thinking about the products you buy and the companies you support. Choosing things with less packaging and supporting companies that care about sustainability.
Yeah.
That sends a powerful message.
Voting with your wallet.
Exactly. What about seafood?
Yeah, what about those of us who love a good seafood meal?
Right. How can we make sure we're making sustainable choices?
Yeah, choices that support healthy fish populations.
So the article doesn't go into specifics about what to buy,
Okay.
but it does emphasize supporting sustainable fisheries.
Right.
Look for seafood that's certified by groups like the Marine Stewardship Council,
Okay.
the MSC.
Uh-huh.
Their blue label means that the fish was caught in a way that minimizes environmental impact.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that label at the store.
Yeah.
Like a little badge of honor.
It is. Are there any other tips for figuring out what seafood is sustainable?
Yeah.
Talk to your local fishmonger or seafood provider.
Yeah.
Ask them about where their seafood comes from
Right.
and how it was caught.
Uh-huh.
Informed consumers can really drive demand.
I love that's being an engaged consumer. Asking questions.
Yeah.
Making choices that align with our values.
Absolutely. But what about going beyond our own individual actions? How can we get more involved in actually protecting the ocean?
Well, there are so many organizations out there, both local and global, that are working to protect and restore marine life.
Right.
You can volunteer your time, donate to a cause you care about, or even just spread the word on social media. Those are all meaningful ways to help.
I recently did a beach cleanup with a local environmental group.
Oh, nice.
It was amazing how much trash we picked up in just a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And it really showed me how much of an impact we have on the ocean.
Right.
Even if we don't live right on the coast.
Those hands-on experiences are so powerful.
Yeah, they really are.
They connect you to the ocean in a real way.
Yeah.
And they make you feel more responsible for taking care of it.
I agree. So how do we go beyond those individual actions?
Right.
And influence those bigger decisions?
That impact the ocean on a larger scale.
That's where civic engagement comes in.
Right.
This article highlights that rebuilding marine life requires a global partnership.
Right.
And that includes citizens holding their elected officials accountable for protecting the ocean.
So what can we do?
Write to your representatives.
Okay.
Go to town hall meetings. Vote for candidates who prioritize ocean health.
Right.
Those are all ways to make your voice heard.
So it's not just scientists and politicians making decisions.
No, it's not.
We, the people, have a say in this.
We do. It's easy to feel powerless.
Yeah.
When you think about these big global problems.
Right.
But politicians listen to their constituents.
Yeah, that's true.
The more people who demand action on ocean conservation, the more likely it is to become a political priority.
It all comes back to that grand challenge for humanity.
It does.
We're all in this together.
We are.
And we all have a role to play.
Whether it's small changes in our daily lives.
Yeah.
Or advocating for bigger policy changes. Right. We can all be part of this.
I think what's so inspiring about this article is that it's not just a doom and gloom report.
Right.
It's a call to action.
It is.
And it gives us hope.
It does a roadmap for a better future.
I'm already dreaming about all the delicious, sustainable seafood I'll be eating.
Yeah.
Once we hit that 2050 target.
There you go.
A thriving ocean benefits us all.
Absolutely.
Well, let's do our part.
Let's do it.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of ocean science and conservation.
Yeah.
A big thank you to our listener for sending us this article. It's given us a lot to think about and, more importantly, a lot to act on.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
Yeah.
And keep diving deep into the topics that matter to you.
See you next time.
Stay curious, keep exploring, and join us next time for more groundbreaking research brought straight to your ears. Don't forget to subscribe and share, because science is meant to be heard.